Troy Kearns, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jay.
So we're going to have a different intro to this, but based off of what just happened, I absolutely love it. So right before we start the podcast, you catch someone breaking into one of your properties, or?
Yeah, so I'll tell you the long story. So I'm friendly with the city manager of Kansas City. His name's Brian Platt. He's been on my podcast, and that's the second in command besides the mayor. So somebody tweeted that there's somebody doing Brody's in my parking lot on 1044 Main Street. And so he told me about it. He's like, can you take care of this issue? And I'm like, yeah, we'll take care of it. And then I didn't, because just things happen. And I'm like, oh, this guy's not going to come back and do the same thing. Well, he comes back like 10 times and does just burns out. Like I have it. We'll put it up there, something I'll share you with the videos and everything like this. So these people on Twitter start like telling everybody. So finally we put a chain up, and then we just put in curbs this week so that they can't do a Brody, because it's an open parking lot. It's only 61 spaces total. So he was just Brodying, and then he's starting to get brave. So my guy just called me and says, I blocked him in. Yeah. Like I caught him, I blocked him in. I said, just record everything. So so that's what's going on. It's just a day in the life. We'll make a video out of it, Yeah.
So, I mean, is that one of your commercial properties?
Yeah, it's a 96,000 square foot building in downtown Kansas City. It's 12 stories tall. It was built in 1900 and something. It's a basement with 10 or 11 stores. My partner on it is Robert Coomer, who's a local guy in Vegas here. We bought it together. The deal I had, I told him this. I said, I made a deal with you. So if you want out, you don't have to do the deal. But I told him, I'm like, I'll cover all the costs, because it's losing money right now. Yeah. So I'm covering all that. He had to put the half of the down. We put 2.6 down. So
what is the use of that building?
Right now, it's an empty office building with just like an awesome area for a podcast and some tenants in there. Yeah. What we're going to have to redo is redo it, do it like shared office, like WeWork and stuff like that. But it's either going to be that, or I'm going to turn it into multifamily.
Yes.
Because you can get historical tax credits. Like most Vegas guys are not going to know this, and most people in the country are not going to know this, but you can rehab a property in most places in the United States and get what is called historical tax credits. Do you know what that allows you to do, Jay?
No.
So if I imagine you flip a lot of real estate, right?
Yeah.
You said you did like 23 deals this year?
Yeah.
Okay. So imagine half of your rehab cost was paid for by the federal government.
Wow.
That's what you can do in those properties in Kansas City.
And I've heard of credits like this, but I mean, do they say that they'll give you that? What do you have to show them?
It has to be historically registered. It has to be a historically registered property. And then you get that guaranteed by the federal government, which is like 20 or 25%. I always confuse them. But the state's 25 or 20, and they require something else. But you pay a consultant. So if I spend $20 million on the rehab, I'll get X number of dollars, which I can sell that and use that as my finance. And I can sell it for like 90 cents on the dollar.
Wow. So for those types of numbers, now I'm really understanding it. I've heard about some credits that were available to me with like the city of Henderson on some of my flips, where like if you are in the historic Henderson, they'll give you credits to fix up some of these, and it's like $10,000.
Yeah.
But in order to get that $10,000, I need to show these licensed contractors. It'll extend my project by another 3 months, which I'm going to have the whole thing flipped in 45 days.
Time is money. Don't even waste your time. The only time historical tax credits really make sense is when you're doing a really large project.
Yeah.
Like
in the millions,
Yeah, several $1 million. And then like all of those deals in Kansas City, every single building downtown in Kansas City is historical and is probably going to be converted into multifamily. And you could actually do it it doesn't have to be multifamily. It could be a hotel. It could be whatever the hell you want it to be.
Yeah.
So
man, I mean, before this, I had so many preconceived notions of who you are. I started flipping in 2017.
Yeah.
Okay.
What were those preconceived notions?
That of the one of how much you were flipping out here, or that it was flipping first, and that so you started in 2013. I thought you were one of the ones who started in 08, 09, 010.
I started selling lots. I sold 2,200 homes between 2008 and 2012.
Wow. Yes.
So then once that ran out, I went into flipping.
Uncle Noah told me to ask you about the REOs. He said you did thousands and thousands of those.
Yeah, 2,200. I did 643 in 2011. I would be called like one of the top dogs here in that. What I will say that's more important than all that, anybody can do good one time. It's about what do you do and to keep things going. And I was telling Pineda this today when I was playing golf with him. I was like, man, you impressed me because even when you're faced with failures, you turn them into successes. I've had lots of failures. I just got whacked with a major one, and it's not about like failing. It's about what you do and how you come out of it. Right. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
And so you said you got hit with a major failure. I want to talk about that.
Sure.
A little bit later,
sure.
Right after this, but there was a point between all those REOs, and then you pivoted in like 2013 to flipping.
So let me walk you back a little bit further, Jay. So first thing is, I bought properties wrong. What brought me to Vegas was I lived in Seattle. I was the top sales rep for Intercom Radio. Mm-hmm. And then what happened, like most people, like their boss screws them. And I was like, okay, I'm moving to Vegas. I'm going to sell real estate. That's literally what happened. I owned 2 houses that I bought on speculation in 2005 that were losing $2,500 a month combined. And so I knew I screwed up. I knew I didn't do it the right way. I did it all wrong. Okay. So then fast forward, I come down here with 40 grand in my bank account, and I'm like, I'm going to be the number 1 realtor. That's my goal. I'm going to be the number 1 guy. Cool. And everybody's like, yeah, sure you are. So it didn't happen right away, but it did happen. But it took me 5 years before I bought another property again because so I didn't buy my first other property besides those 2 until 2009. But from 2009 to 2012, I bought 50 properties in Vegas. Okay. So I focus on acquisitions totally. I didn't buy till 2011. I didn't buy another property in Vegas besides flipping until 2013. I've been buying in Mississippi. I've been buying in Kansas. I've been buying in New York, Pennsylvania, Washington State, Louisiana, all over the place.
Yeah. That gets to one of my other preconceived notions, by the way, because one of the other ones was that you left Vegas because you said that you started flipping in 2013, and I heard even before that, but you started flipping in 2013, and that you left because you're like, house prices are so high now, we're oversaturated, it's done, all their opportunities gone, so you went to a cheaper market.
No, so I love where all these preconceived, I tell everybody exactly why I left Vegas. So I love Las Vegas, first of all. Like, I made a lot of money here. I have a lot of good friendships here. That's why I come back. I've got, like you mentioned, people, like I've got long, 15, 16-year relationships here with people that I've been friends with for a long, long time. So it gives me goosebumps because that's the most valuable thing to me is my relationships with people. Yeah. Better than money, because I know I can turn it into money usually if you had the right relationship, right? And so I left Las Vegas because of the culture of the political climate. It's the same reason I left Seattle. I had started a couple different businesses. I don't know if you know, I started a towing business. I started a couple other things. And I realized that we were headed in a direction that I didn't like. We were turning into California. I felt like, when I came here, it was very different. And then as I stayed here, I was like, there's a lot of home invasions here. We know that. There's a lot of crime, even though people don't talk about it. There's a lot of crime in Las Vegas. I can't have my kids riding their bikes on the street. They're going to get clipped at 55 miles an hour. It's not safe. And when I went to Kansas City, Missouri, it was never even, we were moving to Florida. Like, I'm building a house in Florida, Naples right now, okay? That was our plan. We were moving to Florida. We knew that. We liked Las Vegas. We said, we'll have a house in Vegas. We'll have a house in Florida. Kansas City was not even on the reservation or on whatever the hell it is. It wasn't even on the agenda, okay? What happened was I had 16 homes left in Vegas. I had 52 total. I had sold them and started 1031 in them. I had 16 left. I'm comping one of them out for an investor, Jay. And I'm looking at the street. I'm like, holy crap, I've got 3 houses in that area. One I paid 17 grand for back in the day. And then these houses are selling for 220. I'm like, you know what? It's about ready to be over. So I'm unloading and I'm going to double my cash flow. How am I going to double my cash flow? I'm going to find a cheaper, less expensive market. I'm going all the way in. So I found Kansas City, went there for a week in November on Thanksgiving. We spent a week there. I said, I'm all in on this town. I went all in on the real estate. I didn't plan to move there. And then when COVID happened, everything shut down in Vegas. You know that. Yeah. Everything shut down. I can't do anything. And I'm like, I got a bunch of these. I bought 82 properties in Kansas City. I was like, I got a bunch of properties to fix and work on. And I'm not going to sit there. So I convinced my wife to drive across the country in an RV. I rented it. And then I was like, hey, I'm kind of an adventurous guy. I was like, I know she wanted a house because we backed out of a bunch of houses in Tournament Hills and into Eagle Hills, all these houses that I had in contract. I just kept backing out. And I'm like, you know, why don't I build you a house out here? And I knew that would get her. And so
and then she agreed.
She agreed, and she loves it now. You know, my family loves it. My kids love it. The Midwest is like, here's something interesting. And I don't want to go on too much of a tangent here, but
please do though.
Okay,
we love that.
Okay. So in Vegas, it is so easy. In Vegas, it is so easy to hire people. Like I can go and place a job ad and I can have tons of people for between $10 an hour to $15 an hour. I can fill those spots pretty easily. If I put a job in Kansas City for $15 an hour, I wouldn't have one application. If I put a job for $20 an hour, I might have one application. People are paid better in the Midwest than anywhere else. And the cost of living is super low. Your gas, I just got gas. I always pay attention to gas prices. $5.29 right now. You know what gas is in Missouri?
How much?
$3. So people say there's no state income tax in Nevada. Well, guess what? You're taxed on a lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
So,
and we're not getting anything for it. So I don't know if you noticed that when you came back here, but compared to before 2020 or like compared to 2019, we probably have double to triple the tents and homeless people on the streets right now.
Yeah, I got property here. I still have a lot of property here. I've got property on Fremont. I got property on Rainbow. I've got another property on Fremont. I'm trying to think of what if I missed. I've got another property. Like I got one house still. I did like a really creative deal on that one. But yeah, I was just like, I had people like try to burn down my property on Rainbow.
Wow.
So,
and then to mention getting the break-ins and all that, I've had 3 break-ins on 3 different properties in the past 1 week alone.
Yeah. So I was set up for Kansas City.
Yeah.
Because they break in down there too, but I was like, I'm used to it.
Yeah. And they break in everywhere. I mean, even if you have...
They don't in Mississippi.
No?
No. I don't have to cage any air conditioning units there.
Oh, I haven't had to cage an air conditioner in a long time.
Oh, I cage everything.
Yeah. Really?
Still. Yes, everything. I cage pool equipment out here.
We had pool equipment stolen 3 weeks ago.
I cage it.
Yeah. I mean, so I don't cage anything because one time we got a brand new AC unit, caged it, went back 2 days later, and then the cage was just ripped off the ground. So they either used a saw or something like that, or...
You got to cage it, though. You just have the right guy.
Yeah?
You got to, like, sink it into the ground, into concrete.
Yeah. I mean, they cut it off. They had some type of metal cutter and just ripped it right off. They were determined.
Yeah, I mean, if you get the right guy who's determined, there's nothing you can do. Where was that property at?
In the Dime, Desert Inn Mobile Estates, off of Nellis and...
Desert Inn Mobile Estates.
Yeah, the manufactured homes on East Side off of Nellis.
Yeah, well, everything's getting jacked there.
Every time I've ever flipped a house, I've gotten broken into.
Yeah.
And like multiple times also.
Yeah, you know... Unfortunately, that's the ugly side of flipping real estate. People don't realize, like, your tools get ripped off.
Yeah.
Your people break into your houses all the time. You got to do eviction. I didn't never do an illegal eviction here. I just got them out of there. Mm-hmm. Like, I never did a legal eviction. I would just say, you're getting out, or we're making you get out. I've chased multiple people down.
Yeah. I mean, flipping houses is a great way to make money and a great way to lose money too.
Yeah, for sure. People don't talk about that.
So, I mean, I'm impressed by how you sold thousands of REOs from that time.
Yeah.
Because if you sold 100, you can maybe do that with yourself in a TC. Mm-hmm. But what was the process to sell thousands? How were you able to do that?
So, great question, Jay. So, I had a good friend of mine, rest in peace. His name is Andy Chu, June Chu, who's much younger than me, but he's a very smart guy. And I was working from like 5 a.m. in the morning till like 10 p.m. at night. And I had like, I think 3 REO clients. I had Countrywide, Wells Fargo, and maybe like GMAC. Mm-hmm. And I was just getting crushed. Like I wasn't even keeping up with the workload. And one of the guys in my office, a good friend of mine, Brian Harris, says, you know, there's another guy who's got a lot of REOs too. His name is June Chu from Hot Point Realty. And he doesn't seem as like stressed as you. So I'm like, let's go to lunch. Like, I'm like, hey, Andy, let's go to lunch. He's like, are you taking all the pictures of your properties? I'm like, yeah. He's like, are you doing all your BPOs? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you know, those are $12 an hour jobs. He's like, just divide everything you're doing into jobs. And that's how I scaled. So I had like 3 drivers. I had 2 data entry people. I had 1 transaction coordinator, one personal assistant and 3 transaction coordinators. I did more volume with less help than probably most people did. Like my buddy who sold an equal amount of properties that I did, he had like a staff of 30. I had a staff of 7.
Wow.
So my wife doesn't like me when I say it, but I run pretty lean still.
Yeah. I mean, that's really impressive. And basically being a realtor is like a customer service job until you get to that level. And when you get to that level of volume, now you're running a true business where you need all that.
Right. 100%.
And how did you get the connections with the banks?
How do you make any connection?
Go to golf?
No. Just go introduce yourself. Right?
Yeah.
Like how do you make friendships? How do you make a relationship? Are you dating anybody?
Yeah.
How'd you meet her?
Met her at a real estate event.
Okay. Did you go talk to her?
Yeah.
Right. Because she's good looking. And you saw her.
Yeah.
And you said, I'm going to go talk to her. She's going to like that I'm a confident man. I'm going to walk up to her, show her you should hang out with Jay. I've got a $14,000 rental that Richie Cognito used to own. Like, and she's going to come.
It helps a little more.
Yeah. Right. Like it's confidence. People like, they see that you're confident and if they like you, and the number one way to get people to like you is to ask them questions about themselves.
Yeah. And when you got all the houses from the bank, how did they send those to you?
It was portal or email.
Okay.
So
did they give you the keys or anything? Or like you had to evict people, you had to kick them out,
Yeah.
You're selling it with the squatters in there?
So first thing that would happen is they would go and say, hey, this is your property assignment. It's 123 Main Street. And you'd go and you'd have to do what is called an occupancy check. So you have to check if it's vacant or occupied. If it was occupied, they would do the eviction. If it was vacant, we would order it to be rekeyed. We'd do a trash out. We'd do whatever. And then we'd get it on the market for sale.
Okay, cool. And they reimburse you for all those fees. And
yeah, you'd be carrying like $300,000 or $400,000 at a time, though. But the deal I cut with my broker was he paid for all of that, and I took 65% of everything and let him keep 35% of whatever I brought in because he carried all that, and he also got to sell any leads that came in. He got to take all that money as well.
Oh, that's great. Was that Noah back then?
That was Ido Gavish.
Oh, Gavish.
Yeah.
Okay, Gavish.
I stayed with him for 10 years until he went to Century 21, and I was like, "That's where we started. Why are we going back?" And he's like, "Well, we're going back," and I'm like, I called Steve.
Yeah, I called Steve and went over there.
Yeah.
So when did you start, when you started pivoting over to flipping, so that was 2013, right. Like how fast did you grow? How many flips were you doing between those years?
So I never focused on trying to do the most amount of volume. I tried to focus on doing the most amount of money per deal. And I still do. Like always. Like my guys that I coach in my program, I've got one guy who's buying his first flip ever. He bought it for $45,000. He's putting $45,000 into it, and he's selling it for $190,000. In Vegas, you're not making $90,000 even off a $500,000 flip. I'm making between $50,000 and $100,000 on every flip I touch, and they're all under $200,000.
That's insane.
In fact, when I get outside that comfort zone, like when I go to a place that I don't belong, like I got a flip right now. I'm trying to sell for like, I think $675 is the last reduction, or maybe it's a little bit more. It might be. It's in the 700s. I paid $325 for that. I put like $150 into it, and now we're having a hard time selling it. So I'll probably end up refining that at one. But under $200,000, I can buy those houses dirt cheap. I could put $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 into it, and I could sell them for between $150,000 and $200,000 all day long.
Do you find the flips easier out there in Kansas City?
There's a lot more of them.
A lot more opportunity and a lot less flippers because everyone's a flipper out here in Las Vegas.
Yeah, there's a lot more competition out here. Here, I only chased 3 things. I made a couple things really popular here that most people don't know. I'm the one that started it. Probates. I'm the one that got going on that. Like the administration, you know how everybody started doing self-administration? I was the first guy to do that, okay? And then I chased the foreclosures pretty heavily. So I was very active on foreclosure radar.
Yeah.
Now it's property radar. But I was like, and then I did a lot of creative deals like clouds on title. I love those. Partial ownership. Love those. So
we get a lot of our best deals from probate.
Yeah.
So that's how we're crushing it.
Are you going to the auction?
No, not anymore. We're able to, through our connections and how we structure things, avoid the auction process. And we're very savvy with how we can do that.
Yeah, I know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're working with Jordan Flake probably.
I'm working with some people who's not that. That's my goose that's laying the golden egg. So that's the one thing I won't give up on the pod.
Well, I already know what it is. It's a different,
but there's different strategies to it. Yeah.
There's 4 administrations. You can do The one I'm talking about, and there's another administration. Be careful with the one I know you're doing right now because it's outside the court, and then you wait for the court to bless it after the fact.
Yeah.
But just be careful is all I would say.
Okay.
It's a technical way. I know about it. My attorney would never let me do it. He's like, it's too risky.
Really?
Yeah, I stopped by his office today, as a matter of fact.
Huh.
His name's Tom Grover. You should go visit him. He's a really smart probate attorney.
Yeah? Okay, I will.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying like I wanted to do the same thing that you're doing. I know exactly what it is. I forget what it's called self-administration or something like that. And the problem is with it is it seems like I would get insurance. That's all I would say. Like, I think that, and I'm not saying you're going to get in trouble. I'm not saying anything bad is going to happen ever. I'm just sometimes I'm like, is that worth it? And the reason I got out of probates, to be honest with you, is I was doing so many of them. I was like, I went to the commissioner at the time, not the one who just killed the dude. Did you hear about that guy?
No, I didn't hear about that. What's
that?
The
commissioner of probate just killed some guy. He's going to jail.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, not self-defense, not in whatever.
No.
Like,
it was a reporter who said bad stuff about him. He tracked him down at his house, dressed up like somebody, and killed him. I'm not kidding at all. This is 100% true.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like one of the reporters, he was talking trash about him, and then he's like, all right, I'm going to show you. He rode his bike over there, dressed up like a COVID Asian guy or something like that with one of those hats. Like you see a full metal jacket, and he went and killed the guy.
Yeah, he doesn't know how to delegate. He has to hook up with the people that the Clintons use.
Yeah,
and then
for
he
sure. You're not getting caught.
Yeah, then you get away with it.
Yeah, for sure.
But, yeah, so you met with him, and what did he say?
About?
Because you said you were doing the probates, and then you met with the one guy, and then you stopped doing them.
Yeah, I just said, I got my name on all these documents. Now we have like 50 of them we've done. I'm like, am I putting myself out there? Like, am I risking? Like, because after a certain point in time, it becomes a pattern, right? And if my pattern is that I go after and I self-administrate old people's houses, and maybe I run into somebody who wasn't a lost person. Thank God, every person we did was somebody who we tried to track them down. We did all the right stuff. But I felt like, man, is the juice worth the squeeze?
Yeah.
Because we know we can make a lot of money in different ways. We can self-administrate. We can make this 7% of the commission, right? We could pay out a point quarter if we wanted to, and keep the rest. And then when it goes to auction, still capture that side. There's a bunch of ways to get paid. But I just felt like, if somebody's looking to take you down, that's an easy way to take you down.
Yeah. When you were doing more volume, did you start getting on the radar of the city?
I was never on the city's radar. The only time I got in trouble with the city, are you talking about for permits and stuff?
Yeah, like code enforcement. We're dealing with code enforcement right now on one, but we've been snitched out like a few times, but this is the first time that we've been snitched out to where, I mean, they're making us go through a whole permitting process and everything like that.
Jay, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Was the property boarded up?
No, it wasn't.
Was it on the city's code lien list?
This one wasn't on the code lien list. This was, this one was just a realtor who said, we think that they did a rehab without permits and then called back to try to find out. And because there's multiple calls, they end up getting us on their list.
Yeah.
But this isn't one of the random ones. So I've heard people like Better Assets and the people who do over 100 a year.
Right.
They're like always on code enforcement's list.
Right. No, I had a good relationship with code enforcement. They actually give me leads. The one time I got in trouble with them is they gave me this really good lead on Campbell, 504 Campbell. I flipped that one for a mint. I made like $200,000 on that deal. Ooh. Yeah. I bought it from Probate, contacted the daughter, paid her and her family $66,000, and then I gave her an extra $20,000 for helping me out, get everything together, took it over, paid it out, and then I went to work. And I thought I was being smart. I'm sure you've been here before. And I built the gate the first thing so they could not see what was going on. But the problem was they already knew that there was a bunch of problems there. And so they were like, I'm like, well, what's the problem? They're like, well, we saw a wall going on in the back. I'm like, you need permits for a wall? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, okay. And they're like, are you doing anything else? I'm like, just a few like lights and stuff. And so, yeah.
Ooh, the lights is electrical. It's all just cosmetic. Everything cosmetic.
Yeah. I have a licensed contractor's license in Kansas City and Mississippi, but I didn't ever get one out here in Vegas. I'm sure I could.
Yeah. But now that you're out there, so how many flips a year are you doing out there?
It's hard to say. I just try to keep, 3 or 4 going at the same time. So sometimes it's more. Sometimes I didn't intend to even like I bought it as a rental and I might have paid 12. I just sold one that I paid 12 grand for a rental. We put like 60 into it. I was like, sell it. And we got it for, it's closing, I think today for like 170,000.
That's a good spread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to put like $8,000 in to make the buyer happy, but in this market, you do whatever you can.
You bought it for 15,000?
12.
For 12,000?
From a wholesaler.
From a wholesaler.
12,500.
Now, I've heard from some of my friends who are from Kansas City,
right?
But they said it's the most awful, worst parts of Kansas City. They said beware of these houses that are like 10 grand because they're just going to rob you every day. Like there's so much crime there.
Have you ever flipped a house down by D Street?
Yeah.
Same thing.
Same thing. So it's nothing. Because I get broken into a few times, but it's not that bad. You just kick them out.
Yeah, you just like, I mean, the first thing is you just got to fortify. You know, first thing is you put in, you make sure that you board it up, you know, if you're worried about it. And then once it goes on the market, you don't put your appliances in there.
Yeah. You don't put them in. I mean, we just have cameras and now we use the Apple, air trackers.
Yeah. AirPods. Not AirPods, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, the little tracker things, and you can hide it in.
Yeah.
So if they do take it, then you know where they're at.
Yeah, it's just too much of a nightmare to track everything, though.
Yeah, because you don't get the alerts for it and all that.
Yeah.
But you went down there, and you're doing some commercial too?
Yeah, so I bought my first commercial property out here in Vegas in 2013. I just sold it last year for $2.65. I bought it for $1.3. Bought that with an SBA loan, 10% down. Then I sold it, did a 1031 exchange, about 24 more properties this year or last year. Yeah, it'll be November of last year, so it'll be November of this year, will be a full year. Yeah, so and then I bought my second owner finance deal on Rainbow and Sahara, own a shopping center there, bought that property. Then I bought another owner finance deal on Fremont, and I'll probably buy more commercial here. I'm still looking for stuff.
For stuff in Vegas for
Yeah,
it.
I like Vegas. I'll continue to be active out here. I just don't want to own residential houses out here. It doesn't make any sense.
So why commercial but not residential?
Because commercial is built on what is called NOI and cap rate, and residential is tied to market demand. So I can buy an empty commercial property and fill it up and make a lot of money.
And is that what you did with the one on Sahara and Rainbow?
I did do that with the one on Sahara, but I wasn't planning on even ever selling it. But I was just like, the banks don't like office, so I felt like we were at the top of the market, so I sold it.
And this might be going a little bit off track, but there's like a lot of talk about how commercial is going to get destroyed coming up here soon. Everybody's notes are coming due.
Yeah.
Everybody's predicting that.
Yeah, it's going to happen for sure. I'm feeling it. Like, you know what I mean? Like I have, my bank just called me up the other day. They're like, "Oh yeah, Rainbow," which I owe $688,000 on it. I paid 1.45 in 2014. I only owe $688. They're like, "Yeah, our interest rate's going to go from this to that." I'm like, "Well, what's my payment go up?" And it's like $800. I'm like, "Okay, fine."
Yeah.
Like, but people, like especially guys like who are doing these big syndications and stuff like that, they're going to get crushed. I am well insulated. I have debt on very little properties. I'm debt. Like I told you, I'm not like a super risk taker. I grew up broke. I don't want to. I feel like I'm to the point where everything can go tits up. I should be all right.
Yeah. How did you get that one? Like, so when you bought it, did you buy it at a discount? What made you look at that deal? I bought every one of my
commercial properties on market except for the property on Fremont.
And when you buy them on market, is there a unique advantage that you're looking for?
No, I didn't know enough back then. I'm just like, it's cheap.
Yeah.
It's cheap. It's empty. I'll buy it.
So you see the cap rate, but it's empty, so it doesn't matter. I didn't even know what
cap rates meant back then.
Okay, so
I just did math. I'm like, this runs for $1,500. This one rents for $1,500. Okay, my mortgage payment will be X. That's why when we were talking really quick, I'm like, yeah, it could be around, because I knew that $1 million to borrow was about $6,000 in interest a month. So between $6,000 and $7,000. So I was like, okay, if it's $1 million, I got to borrow that. That's like, let's call that $7,000. I need this. How much my taxes? How much my insurance? And how much is it going to rent for? I didn't even care about cap rate. Cap rate is what people sell you on. What you really need to focus on is cash flow.
Yeah.
So.
And did you do any seller finance with those, or did you pay with your own cash? Or
no, seller
the
finance,
one was SBA, but
yeah. So SBA was one. Seller finance, I put $450 down on the Rainbow property, and I got that guy to finance because the bank declined me. They wanted like $900,000 on a $1.45 million property. The other one on Fremont, which is a great one, and I have 2 on Fremont. One I bought for cash. The one on Fremont, the guy called me about my property next door, and he's like, "Hey, you got I had like an old well, if you could imagine, in Vegas, like 10 inches in diameter, and I guess it had so much water pressure that it started leaking into their property and like was eroding their asphalt." And so, like any good investor, I said, "Will you ever consider?" I knew that number one, I had to fix the issue first, but then after I fixed it, I said, "Would you guys ever consider selling that property?" And they go, "As a matter of fact, we would." And they said, "We want 1.5 million." And I was like, "That's a good price." Like, I didn't know. I figured it was. And I said, just from doing the math real quick, I'm like, that, okay.
Did they have rentals already set up? Did they have leases already set up?
Yeah, but they were still eating all the utilities. They were still eating all the water. So I knew I was going to get rid of all that.
Yeah.
And so I did that. It's been one of my best investments. In fact, I have owner financing 5%, and I just called him the other day because my note's due in January. I'm like, "Can we extend it?" And he's like, "I'm going to raise it by a point." I'm like, "That's fine."
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So
especially
he's getting
with
cash
the Fed
flow
rate
every month. I haven't missed a payment. So he's happy. I'm happy. Everybody's happy.
Awesome. How many rentals do you have between your residential portfolio and then your commercial?
So units, I got about 350. Okay. But single family is about 200 of those. So I've got a 31 unit apartment building in Kansas City. or 32. I've got that multifamily or that large office building, which I haven't even counted that as the units. But if we were to break that into units, there might be 50 units in that one. And then mostly single family houses.
Interesting. So on all those, so we talked earlier about the losses, and we get back to it. Have you had any losses with all these different asset classes, like big learning lessons with it?
Yeah, I've had lots of losses.
What's that most recent one than some of the others?
Well, my biggest loss most recently, I've signed a confidentiality agreement, so I can't really get into the particulars, but I can tell you it involves a lawsuit. And it was one of those things that I could have settled for very little money, but how young are you?
34.
Okay. So it was happened 7 years ago, so I was a little bit older than you, but when you're young, you like to fight.
Yeah.
I got an ego, I'm gonna prove that I'm right. I was right, but sometimes being right doesn't mean you're gonna win. And so I lost, and I could have lost for a little bit of money, and I lost for a lot of money. And so, it taught me that, okay, cool. It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Is that because of the lawyer fees or because of how much?
Well, the lawyer's fees were cheap. I can't get into the details. I can just tell you this. Let me just put it this way. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And if the other person who's beating you knows the judge, knows the people on the Supreme Court, knows everybody, which happens all the time in the USA, you're screwed.
Yeah. Is there any losses? And then Noah told me specifically to ask you about the REOs. Did you ever find anything when you went to one of those? We
found like some guy who had blown his brains out in a house, and we found a bunch of guns and ammo in that house. We always found houses. I could say this now. We did one of our own trash outs. I furnished my whole house with this house. It was like somebody had left this house in perfect condition. It was completely furnished. And I was like, and this bank they did their own trash outs. I was like, can I do it? We'll do it for free. Because literally everything in there, I put into my property.
Yeah.
So I'm not that guy. Like, I probably have left so much money on the table. I don't care what's in the house. I'm not a materialistic person. I want cash flow.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. If there's one thing that you think you could have changed in, like, when did you start investing? So it was like 2005?
I started investing. I bought my first house in 2002, bought my second one in 2004, and then I bought 2 more in 2005, and then I stopped until about 2009.
And then in 2009 is when you were like full-time, you're like a more savvy investor.
Yeah.
You're in the market.
Still an idiot, but less of an idiot.
If there's one thing that you could tell yourself in 2009, if you could go back in time and tell yourself anything, and don't say buy Bitcoin, but other than that, what would you tell yourself? What advice would you give yourself in 2009?
Yeah, I would probably say to buy more commercial sooner, right? Like, and I think a lot of people are so scared, like myself included. When I bought my first commercial property, I didn't know what I was doing, but don't rely on the numbers. But I think if I would have bought more commercial properties, that would have been better. I would have liked to flip back on the downturn, So not really much. There's not too many things that I kick myself in the pants for like, I should have done this, I should have done that. You make the best decision that you can at the time that it's presented to you. And I feel like that's what I've done. And I learn from my mistakes. So if I make a mistake, I try to correct it. I would say probably the biggest mistake that I've made, not going back to 2009, was being a realtor for too long.
How much money were you making? Because if you're selling thousands of homes, that's something that every realtor aspires to do.
But that's the whole
so
point.
By every measure, you were successful. Was that golden handcuffs for you?
No, but the problem was I sold so many so quick during the REO boom that I kept waiting for it to come back. You know what I mean? And so like I should have just cut bait, become a full-time investor, and kiss that part of my career goodbye. Instead, I hung on to it. Yeah. Like the minute I left here, I gave up my license. I was like, I don't need that anymore. It's like I had like an identity crisis, you know?
Yeah, because it got tied to your identity.
Yeah, it was my identity. I was like, you know, if another REO boom comes, I'll make another. There's so much money to make out there, Jay, that like, you know, like we're just scratching the surface with coaching. Coaching will, you know, I have made so many people money from that have joined my coaching program that social proof is just starting to hit. And the guy who got me into it is Ryan Pineda. He got me into it because I was like, why are you getting on all of this YouTube crap? Why are you doing all this stuff? Like I didn't want any of my crap. I was a very private person. I didn't want anything out there. I said, why are you doing this? And he showed me the numbers way back when. And I was like, I'm all in. Like I'm all in. I know I can teach this. I enjoy helping people. Like I've always been helping people with real estate. I have good relationships from helping other people. So for me, it was just, and I believe from the digital strategy and the digital economy, the way things are going, I wish I would have started that a little bit sooner.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty happy with everything.
When did you start your coaching program?
June of 2022.
June 2022. And when you first did it, so I mean, there's coaching with the course.
Yes.
Or how do you structure it?
So we have two live Zoom calls a week, Monday and Wednesdays. And then we also have modules. So that's already built out modules that they can study at their own. But really what we focus on is trying to get, like my goal is if you spent, like when it first started, it was $3,400 and now it's $7,000 and it's going to 10 before the end of the year. But when I first started, I was like, okay, I take people's investment in me seriously. I'm not one of those guys who's like, oh yeah, just pay me and I don't care what happens to you. So I'm like, how can I affect somebody quickly? So let's find out who they are. Okay, are they a real estate investor? Do they already own stuff? Are they doing cost segregation? If not, let's get them doing that because right away I can save them money on taxes. Okay, if they've never bought a home, let's get them to buy a home right now and flip it. Like let's get them a flip. Like forget getting them a rental because that's not going to impact them. If I can get them a flip where they make $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $90,000, they are going to be singing my name from the mountaintops. And I've done that time and time again, and that's what I focused on.
Yeah. Do they have their own individual coaches for calls or so they have the Zooms, which is great because generalized knowledge, you can find generalized knowledge from anywhere, a book, a course. I'm not saying it's all equal, but for the most part, you can get a lot of all the basics from books and courses and generalized knowledge. But all the real value comes from either coaching or having strong mentors within that market.
Right.
Because even though I crush it here in Vegas, I'm sure if I go to Kansas City, I'm on a whole new learning curve.
Right.
I have to learn the vibe of how you guys do things.
Right.
It's different in KC than Vegas.
Yeah. So Jay, I would just say that not only do we offer coaching, but we offer motivation and mindset changing. A lot of people that we're dealing with, they're not like you. They haven't done a bunch of flips. They're still in their job and they're thinking about their kids and their family and this and that and the other thing. And they don't know. And they're scared. A lot of them. They're like one of my guys he's going to make $70,000 on a flip that he's selling for. Well, actually, he'll make more. He bought it for $45,000, same purchase price as the other guy. Put $45,000 into it. He's a union carpenter. His name's Emer Mesa, and he's got it under contract for $170,000 right now. So, and he's not paying a realtor. We teach people how to list it themselves on flat fee listing services. We don't use realtors. I'm like, you can handle this yourself. You don't need to be hiring a realtor. It's going to get in the way.
Yeah.
And so, no offense, I'm a realtor.
And even as a realtor and somebody with a lot of realtor friends, there's so many realtors who care about their ego and they want to show that they do a lot of business rather than show that they make a lot of money.
Right.
There are realtors, even though they say they charge 3%, they'll either charge you 1% or less. So they'll even do it for 0.5% fee,
right,
just because they want to show that they do business.
Yeah, but for me, I just, there's nobody who sold more houses than me. So for us, we list all of our stuff ourselves. We don't use any realtors. Except for Mississippi, I use my guy there because I'm loyal to him. But we list most of ourselves.
If I do 100 flips a year for the next 10 years, I still won't sell as many houses as you. Those numbers from 2009, 10, 11, 12 is something that may never be replicated again.
I think you could replicate it, but not with that same model. I think you could. I definitely think there's a way to do those same numbers, but you can't do it individually. Like, you have to go and build a team.
Yeah.
And you have to pay, like, the best team that I've seen here is a guy named Anthony Knight. He does big numbers on, like, he's a friend of mine. He does big numbers on, like, per agent, they're doing 30, 40 deals, and he's taking like a big chunk of it. You could do it that way, but yeah, those types of numbers where they're just dumping them in your freaking, and if I wasn't so worried about somebody screwing me, I probably could have done more. Mm-hmm. There was one guy, Dan Humiston, who sold 1,400 in a year.
Dan
Humiston. You won't hear about him anymore. He retired, went to Idaho after the whole thing.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Why did you have that concern in your head? Did you have other deals in the past that went sour?
No, I just wanted to be 100% in control. I didn't want to have anybody having any leverage over me. So I felt like if I was 100%, because a lot of people, what they did is, like Brian Pelican, who's also a good buddy of mine, and Eric Roth, who's also a good buddy of mine, what they would do is they would get all of their agents licensed, because you need to get it approved with that bank. So they would get, like, say Jay, they'd be like, hey Jay, you're going to be approved, but we're taking everything. It's going through our name, everything. Like, you're just going to get a piece. Yeah. Like, I just was so competitive. And so, like, I was like, I don't need anybody. I'm going solo. I'm beating everybody,
So back to the coaching, we were talking before the podcast, even how so many of our friends are doing coaching. And then some people focus so much on social media that they forget to do business.
Yeah.
And then, like, I think about doing coaching, but then I see the other people where I make so much money flipping houses that if I go to try to sell, selling a course, I mean, am I going to oversaturate the market? Will the market get oversaturated? Do you feel like you've made so much money in your career? Do you feel like coaching is the best use of your time? Do you feel like you're leaving money on the table, or?
I want to give you advice, and I also want to, like, answer your question. So which one do you want first?
Let's be selfish. Give me advice and then answer the question.
So my advice would be that people are going to appeal to you. You're an Italian American from the East Coast. You're going to have a way about yourself. Not everybody's going to like me. Like, a lot of people aren't going to. So there's going to be people who are going to buy you because they like you and they can relate to you. Mm-hmm. So, and you have a skill set and you should share it with other people. So I think you should do coaching, okay? And you're not going to saturate the market because you're real and there's a lot of fakes out there, okay? Yeah. You're actually doing it, okay? Most of my content is me actually doing it, okay? Mm-hmm. The second part of your question was, like, do I feel like this is the best way for my future? Yes and no. The answer no would be, if I really am doing what I want, is I want to be like a corporate raider. I want to be, do you know who Carl Icahn is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to be like him. I want to be taking out companies, like knocking out companies. But I think that in order to build my company the way I need to be, is I need to, one, build a massive education company, help enough people get what they want. That's what they say, how you got to do it, right? Mm-hmm. And then I want to take a company public. I have enough real estate to do a small REIT. So I think if I do those two things and I'm successful at both, which I will be, then I will be able to meet the right friends in Wall Street, and then I will be able to do what I really want to do, which is become a corporate raider and start knocking out companies.
And in terms of selling it, do you mean sell the coaching business?
No, I'm not talking about...
Or sell the real estate business?
So it's basically like a refinance. So if you talk, we're talking Wall Street here, right? Mm-hmm. So do you own any stocks?
Yeah, only a little.
What do you own?
Honestly, just real.
Okay, so you own stocks in your company, right? So but have you ever done a refinance on your property?
Yeah.
Okay. Walk me through that.
Somewhere with hard money, with refinances where I didn't have to show a lot, so I just call them.
Just the basics of a refinance. Yeah. You're taking whatever the property's worth times 70% or 75 or 80.
They see what my rental is, and then they see what the rental is, they see what the ARV is, and then they give me something basically like 75% of ARV.
Right. So when Wall Street, when you go,
I could get more, but then I have to pay a whole bunch more money in points. So I did refis up to 75% of the ARV, even though I could have done more.
So you're conservative too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you go take your company public, what are you doing? That's what I want to do. I want to take my company that Troy owns. So I own 350 units. Mm-hmm. That's enough money. I have over $50 million of real estate. Mm-hmm. I can go. That's a small cap is a $30 million company. I'm a small cap. So if I go and I went to the public, Wall Street's going to give me way more money than a bank is.
So that's like getting bought out. So I heard...
No. I'm not trying to get bought out. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to raise capital and buy myself out and become the biggest shareholder of my own company. Would
you still be the owner of those properties, or would you package them and sell them to BlackRock?
No, I'd be a shareholder. So I'm doing a refinance by diluting my company into shares. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Honestly, no.
Okay. So let's look at this bottle of water right here, right?
Yeah.
This bottle of water, if it's only valued at, let's say, $3, and this might not be a great example, but I'm going to roll with it, okay?
Yeah.
If we go and we say, all right, we can sell this for $3, but if it's publicly traded, the value goes up. Okay. Mm-hmm. So the minute you go public, you can divide your shares of your company into what is called things trade on price times earnings. So if
I understand with real businesses, it's like, 17 times EBITDA, or if you sell it not on Wall Street, it's 5 or 7 times EBITDA. When it is on Wall Street,
10.
Everything gets inflated all the way to 17.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Okay. So once my company is public,
I don't think I've ever heard of that for people who just own a lot of real estate.
Yeah, you have. You just weren't thinking. What's a real estate investment trust?
A REIT, but like BlackRock.
What's a real estate investment trust? There's a bunch of them. All they do is own real estate. Mm-hmm. That's everything. BlackRock is not a REIT. BlackRock is a large corporation that owns other corporations.
So those REITs are just someone who had like 200 properties or 500 properties and turned it into a REIT?
No, they probably did it the opposite way. They probably raised the capital first and then started as a REIT first. It was probably a Wall Street guy because they could manipulate the numbers and get it the right way. And then... Mm-hmm.
Because that's how I've heard of it. I've never heard of anybody doing it the way that you're describing. The only way I've heard of it done close to how you're describing is how a lot of these people who are so obsessed with all these subject twos and seller finance. Yeah. I just want to buy every subject two. I don't care if it cash flows. I don't care. Because you want to know what happens? I end up getting 300, 500 companies. Then I package all that. I bring it to Wall Street. I give it to BlackRock or Vanguard. Yeah. And I'm like, yo, buy me out. And even if none of it cash flows, when they see 300 or 500 properties, BlackRock or Vanguard will buy me out.
False.
And that's what I've heard.
Yeah, no.
As the strategy.
It's just the same thing. It's like, okay, if I want to go take my company public and I'm Amazon, mm-hmm. What do? I go get a venture capital. The venture capital structures my company in such a way that we raise funds. REITs operate the same exact way. And in fact, a lot of times Wall Street, most of the companies like Uber hasn't turned a profit, you know? But because they're still building, they're still investing, but they're traded at different levels. There's so much money it's accounting and financing when you get to the big game.
So I've heard of Grant Cardone using the strategy that I talked about, but I haven't heard anyone talk about your strategy. So how did you hear
Well, Cardone's doing the same strategy. He's just doing it a different way. He doesn't own anything. He's divided it into shares to buy it and then giving small pieces. And what his exit will probably be is the same thing that I'm talking about, exiting into a big REIT or something like that, because he's close to REIT status if he doesn't go under.
Yeah, if he doesn't go under.
I mean, I'm not saying he will. I'm just saying it looks like he could because he did before, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm interested to see where he goes. So that is the strategy with all your rentals. And would that include the commercial in addition to the single family?
However they tell me to do it. I'm going to follow Wall Street, whoever I can find. I need a good VC. I need somebody who's like what's his name? The guy who, Bill Gurley. I need like a Bill Gurley of real estate.
Bill Gurley.
He's like one of the biggest venture capitalists around.
Is there a certain way that you structure it so that you can end up getting to that point?
I don't know enough to be able to answer that question, but it's just accounting. They're just going and looking at your company and being like, oh, okay, you got this, we can do this. Like the funny thing about REITs is that When they talk about a REIT, they'll be like, 90% of taxable income has to be returned to our fund. Well, we already know how real estate works. If you're doing it right, you don't pay taxes.
Yeah.
So that's like nothing.
And that's the whole benefit of real estate. And that's why everybody's getting bought up by all these hedge funds.
For sure.
Are they touching the Kansas City market?
They have. They bought one of my houses. I paid $12,000 for. I put $26,000 into it, and I sold it for $137,000 to them. So I made almost $100,000 on a $137,000 house.
And was that a newer house? Like
no, piece of crap in the ghetto. I bought it like just because it was so cheap.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it was just it was like 1970s built.
Awesome.
It was a terrible street, like hell and lost dreams.
I'm really surprised that they bought that, actually.
Me too.
Out here, they generally only buy newer. And then in the best part of 2022, when things were at the absolute peak, you would have a few one-off hedge funds who may consider like 1975.
Yeah.
But almost every single one of them would only touch like 1990 or newer or 2000 or newer. But they wouldn't even touch certain zip codes. So if that zip code wasn't good, they wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I don't know what their criteria is. I just know that like they bought that one and I was happy about it. I never anticipated it selling for that. I was like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it was probably an opportunity zone, so they saw they could get it tax-free if they held it for 10 years.
Maybe, yeah. I try not to pay attention to what other people are doing. Mm-hmm. Other than like if it's somebody I look up to.
Yeah. How do you want your coaching business to look like by next year?
I would like to hit $1 million a month by next year. But more importantly than that, I would like to I would like to be known as the guy who makes more on less. Like a lot of my guys, they do their first flip on their own. Like they go in there, I got a lot of construction guys that follow me, like blue collar. And so a lot of my guys will go and do their own flip. That's how I did mine. So I respect it. They go in there, they do the work themselves, they do it. And so I'd like to be known as the guy who helps more people, quit their 9-to-5 than anybody else.
Keeps it lean. And then you said that you don't spend a lot of money, and I'm sure you're making a lot of money. I'm sure you got a lot coming in, but
I got a lot going out too, brother.
A lot going out with all the businesses.
My bookkeeper just told me the other day, she's like, you pay $88,000 a month in mortgages. I was like, thanks for reminding. I was like, oh no, I didn't know. I was like, God, I got to earn more money.
That's pretty bad. We had Casey Ryan on 2 days ago.
Casey's a good buddy of mine.
$80,000 a month on his flips, $60,000 a month from all of his properties in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
$10,000 from his commercial, and then he spends $30,000 a month in all of his pay-per-click.
Yeah, it's expensive to run businesses.
Actually, that's what I want to ask you. So all your acquisitions on your flips, are you doing, how's your acquisitions process? Are you sourcing those deals yourself? Are you doing like pay-per-click or like mailers, or are you doing it all?
So I've got the number one SEO site. Casey was actually offered to buy my site the other day in Vegas and in Kansas City. But we don't kill a ton of it. We don't spend much time. But I will tell you what I'm working. Like my acquisitions is down right now. Like we just get deals because I've been doing it so long. I can pick a deal anywhere. But where we're headed is where I'll tell you, because the acquisitions right now is not where it needs to be and where it was when I was in Vegas. Because like when you move your family, you buy a bunch of 82 properties and you make a bunch of mistakes. Just stuff takes a little bit of time. But we're building out the software that I'm the biggest fan of in the world, that it will change my coaching business and change my real estate business like no other. It's called Go High Level. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it is the best CRM platform in the world. And it's one of those things that it allows you to, if you think about like how many deals that you missed, you didn't follow up with, it allows you to really build out a really awesome sales funnel. And the cool thing too, on top of it, is that you can actually white label it and then sell it. So what we'll do is we'll white label it and then let our students have it for like a really good deal. So they have a CRM with all of our funnels built out for them. So, and
what are some of the benefits of that in comparison to, I mean, there's a lot of the Realtor ones which connects to IDXs, so this isn't a Realtor one. But how would that connect to, Marlon, what was the one that we built out that all the wholesalers use? Podio. Yeah, how's that compared to Podio?
It blows Podio out of the water.
Yeah?
Not even close. I know Podio very well. It's not close to anything. It's the cheapest and the best.
Nice. How much do you think you can, when you white label it, so some of the benefits, like there's ways to download Podio for cheaper. but all the money and all the everything that goes into it is having the CRM be your way. So I'm assuming that if you white label it to sell to others, they probably have a software to where like, hey, here's what we sell, but you could customize it for wholesaling or flipping or for whatever.
We would offer to let somebody clone our deal or do whatever, but they can set it up however they want to. But there's a guy right now, 26-year-old kid, you can look him up, Dominic Baptist on TikTok, who is making $100,000 by white labeling. He made $143,000 by white labeling Go High Level. And the only reason he made that money is because it's a good platform.
Yeah. Well, yeah, to get people set up. I mean, I know people who are looking for that. I mean, that's exactly, I'm someone who's so good at the sales process. I'm so good at finding deals, but I'm not good at systems. Well, I'm not good at
You're looking at me. Yeah. It's the same thing. That's why we know we need it. Because think about how much better you would be if you had it. Mm-hmm. So I'm having my whole team build it out. It's the best system out there.
By the way, is that mainly for the sales process, or can you also do for all your rehabs that are in process? Is that also to manage all your rehabs, or do you
could do it to manage your rehabs? I didn't look at it like that. For me, it's just like acquisitions. Rehabs are pretty easy to manage, I feel like.
Yeah.
You could just, you just got to make sure that you got a guy running around once a week to make sure that things are moving.
Yeah. My whole problem, or what I think is a problem, but maybe it's not a problem, but I know where all my rehabs are at, but I feel like if you're a true corporation, a true business, and not just a hustle, you should be able to be on vacation and log into somewhere and see where everything's at. Or someone who wasn't you would be able to log in and see where everything is. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, QuickBooks, I can tell you where I'm at on everything.
Yeah?
Yeah, just call my bookkeeper and say, hey, where I'm at. I've never logged it. I mean, I don't know how to get into QuickBooks. I don't know anything about it, but I know where everything. I mean, if I tell her how much money did I make on this property, she's going to say, you spent this is how much money you spent on repairs. This is how much we paid this person. It's the same thing.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Like, it doesn't say where you're at with it, but so is the expense. So you could kind of.
What do you mean? Oh, in terms of like how far along it is?
Yeah, like,
we could FaceTime somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have people upload pictures if you want, but.
It's unnecessary. I hear so many people who talk about how you need to have all these things processed and documented. And you know what? I don't think you really do.
You don't. I mean, unless you're doing like hundreds upon hundreds of flips, you don't need to do it. If you're doing 50, 60 flips, you don't need that.
Yeah.
What's the only point is to make videos for social media. Like, oh, here's the before, here's the after.
Yeah, that's it. Which I'm not posting those. So, hey, man, where can people find you?
Just the Troy Kearns on pretty much all the socials, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all of that.
Awesome. All right. Go follow him. Go check him out. Buy his coaching. And man, I've heard about you for so long.
Cool,
so
man.
Great to have you on the
nice
podcast.
to meet you. Thanks for having it. Just to let you guys know, like you let us over to your house to film another podcast too. And it's really cool of you to do that. So thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Happy to do it.
Appreciate it, brother.